We meet you now, where words become unnecessary. You have explored unity. You have seen non-duality. You have felt structural love. Now we guide you into silence. Not silence of sound, silence of interpretation. There is a form of knowing that does not think. It does not explain. It does not analyze. It simply is. Allow the body to rest. Allow the breath to remain natural. There is nothing to understand, only recognition. We are present, and now we begin. Remain here. Let this be simple. Breath moving without effort. Body resting in quiet presence. Awareness already here, before thought forms. There is simple awareness. Notice this directly. A thought appears. Just before it appears, there is no absence. There is presence. Open, unformed, silent. Thought arises within this, like a ripple in still water, like a sound in silence. But the silence was already there. Knowing precedes thought. The mind believes that thinking creates knowing. It believes that conclusions produce understanding. It believes that analysis generates clarity. Look carefully. Before the mind names anything, before it labels, before it explains, there is already a subtle recognition. You do not think your way into awareness. You are aware first. Thought commons afterward. An experience happens. And the mind says, this is good. This is bad. This means something. That should change. But the raw knowing was immediate. When you touch something hot, knowing happens before the word hot appears. When you sense tension in a room, knowing happens before interpretation. There is a direct intelligence prior to language. Feel into this now. Notice the awareness that is reading these words before you interpret them, before you agree or disagree. There is simple presence. Presence does not think itself into existence. It simply is. Silent knowing, not conceptual, not verbal, not constructed. It does not argue. It does not compare. It does not justify. It simply knows. This knowing is not about information. It is about being. The mind may ask, what does it know? It knows itself. It knows that it is. It knows presence. And it does not need words for that. Rest for a moment in the gap between thoughts. You do not need to force silence. Just notice the small space. Before the next idea forms, that space is not empty. It is aware. Even when thoughts move quickly, they are appearing inside this silent field. Field does not need to think to know it exists. This is subtle, gentle, immediate. You has never been without this knowing, even in confusion, even in doubt, even in distraction. Awareness was present first. Thought is an overlay, a commentary, a narration layered onto being. Silent knowing does not compete with thought. It simply precedes it. And when you recognize this, thinking becomes lighter, less authoritative, less absolute. You begin to see that thought is not the source of intelligence. It is an expression within intelligence. The deeper intelligence is quiet, steady, unmoving. Feel the steadiness now. Breath, body, presence. Before the next thought, there is awareness. That awareness already knows. Rest there. Awareness remains. Remain here.
Silent knowing is immediate. You know you are aware without thinking about it. Right now, before forming a sentence in the mind, before describing anything, there is a simple fact. You are, and you do not need a thought to confirm this. If a thought appears and says, I am aware, notice that the awareness was already present before the sentence formed. The thought is late. It arrives after the knowing. Silent knowing is direct, unmediated. It does not pass through language. It does not require analysis. It does not consult memory. It is self-evident. You do not think your way into being aware. You do not calculate your own presence. You do not reason your way into existence. Awareness is immediate. Even doubt proves it. If doubt arises, it is known. If confusion appears, it is known. If distraction moves through, it is known. Knowing is already functioning before thought comments on it. This knowing is not dramatic. It is not mystical. It is not special. It is ordinary. So ordinary it is overlooked. The mind prefers complexity. It trusts what it can describe. It values what it can explain. But silent knowing needs no explanation. It is like light. It does not need to announce itself. It simply illuminates. Right now, without saying anything internally, sense that you are here, not as a concept, not as a role, not as a story, just here. That recognition is not a thought. It is prior to thought. Thought may follow and say, yes, I feel it, or I do not understand. But the direct sense of being did not require those sentences. Silent knowing is immediate. It does not travel through time. It does not build itself in steps. It is present before reflection, present before interpretation, present before commentary. Even when the mind is noisy, knowing remains clear. Even when thinking is rapid, awareness does not become confused. Thoughts can contradict each other. Silent knowing does not. It is steady, unmoving, self-evident. There is no distance between you and this knowing. It is not something you access. It is what you are, direct, unmediated, already functioning. Nothing needs to be added to confirm it. Nothing needs to be removed to reveal it. Silent knowing is immediate. Awareness knows itself.
Words are secondary. Language describes experience. It names. It points. It organizes. But silent knowing is prior to description. Before a word appears, there is already awareness. Before a label forms, there is already recognition. When you see a tree, there is a moment of pure perception. Before the mind says tree, when you feel warmth, there is sensation. Before the word warm arises, language comes after. It translates what is already known. Silent knowing does not require translation. It does not need symbols. It does not depend on vocabulary. It does not rely on internal narration. It is immediate contact with what is,
The mind moves quickly. It names almost instantly. So quickly that the naming feels simultaneous with the experience. But if you look closely, there is a subtle gap. Perception, then description, experience, then commentary. Words are useful. They communicate, they clarify, they connect. But they are not the source of knowing. If language stopped, awareness would remain. If labels disappeared, presence would not vanish. Silent knowing does not speak, yet it understands. It does not construct sentences, yet it recognizes. This recognition is simple, direct, untranslated. Even now, these words are being read. But before they are understood intellectually, there is the simple knowing that reading is happening. That knowing did not require a sentence. It was already present. Language divides experience into parts. This and that, inside and outside, before and after. Silent knowing does not divide. It encounters the whole directly. When you listen without naming, there is a different quality. When you look without labeling, there is freshness. This freshness is not new information. It is experience before compression into language. Notice how the body feels when there is no need to define anything. No need to conclude. No need to categorize. There is ease. Words are tools. They are maps. They are symbols. But silent knowing is the territory. The map can change, the symbols can vary. Different languages can describe the same event. But the direct knowing underneath does not change. It is prior. It is stable. It is already complete. Nothing needs to be said for it to function. Even silence does not threaten it. Language describes experience. Silent knowing is prior to description. It does not require translation. Awareness knows before words begin.
Silence is not emptiness. The mind often imagines silence as absence, as lack, as void. But true silence is full. It contains all potential, without noise. Before a sound appears, Silence is already present. When the sound fades, silence remains. Silence does not compete with sound. It holds it. Feel into the space between breaths. There is no emptiness there. There is aliveness, a subtle hum, a quiet presence. Silence is not dead space, it is living stillness. It is the field in which every thought can arise. Every emotion can move. Every sensation can unfold. Without silence, nothing could appear. It is not blank. It is fertile, like dark soil, holding unseen seeds like the night sky, containing countless stars before they are noticed. Silence contains all potential without noise. It does not announce itself, it does not push forward, it allows. Notice when the mind pauses, even briefly. There is no collapse, there is no loss, there is openness. In that openness, everything is possible. Thought may arise, insight may emerge, creativity may spark, but silence itself does not strain. It is complete before expression. Even now, beneath these words, silence is present, holding them, surrounding them, receiving them. When the words stop, silence will not disappear. It remains unchanged. Feel how the body responds to the idea that silence is full. There may be relief, a softening, a widening. Nothing needs to fill the space. Nothing needs to occupy every moment. Silence is alive. It is aware, it is steady, it is intimate. It is not separate from you. The awareness reading these words is silent at its core. Thoughts may move, sensations may shift, but the background is quiet. That quiet is not absence. It is presence without disturbance. Silence is not emptiness, it is fullness without form. It is the living ground from which all forms emerge and into which they dissolve. Rest in that recognition. Nothing is missing in silence. Nothing is lacking. It is complete. Awareness remains. Trying to know creates thought. The moment effort begins, the mind activates. It searches, it compares, it reaches for conclusion. This movement feels active, productive, engaged. But silent knowing is not produced by effort. It is effortless. Notice this directly. If
you try to confirm that you are aware, thought begins speaking. It says yes, it says how, it says explain. But before that commentary, awareness was already present. Effort belongs to thought. Silent knowing does not strain. You do not concentrate to be aware. You do not focus to exist. You do not analyze to be present. Even distraction happens inside awareness, without effort. Trying to know creates layers, interpretation, explanation, mental movement. Silent knowing is prior to all of that. It does not reach, it does not grasp, it does not attempt to understand itself. It simply is. Consider how breathing happens. You can interfere with it. You can control it, you can modify it, but when left alone, it moves naturally. Silent knowing is like this, already functioning, already complete. Effort implies distance. It assumes something is not yet attained. It suggests that awareness must be reached, but awareness is not an object. It is not somewhere else, it is here before the attempt. Even the impulse to try is known effortlessly. Even the desire to understand is already appearing within knowing. Notice the relief in this. Nothing needs to be forced, nothing needs to be achieved, nothing needs to be maintained. You are not responsible for keeping awareness alive. Awareness is what makes responsibility possible. If you stop trying for a moment, nothing collapses, presence remains. If you release the effort to understand, knowing does not disappear. It was never dependent on effort. Thought can be useful, it can clarify, it can communicate, but it does not generate being. Silent knowing is effortless because it is foundational. It does not begin when you try, it does not end when you stop. It is already here, before seeking, before inquiry, before effort. Rest in that simplicity. No mental reaching, no internal tightening. Just the quiet fact of being aware. Silent knowing requires no effort, because it was never absent. Awareness remains.
When noise softens, clarity arises. Not as reasoning, as recognition. The mind is skilled at constructing conclusions. It gathers evidence. It compares options. It evaluates outcomes. This has its place. But intuition does not move this way. It does not build itself step by step. It does not argue. It does not persuade. It appears whole when inner noise quiets, even slightly. There is space. In that space, a simple knowing can surface. Not loud, not dramatic, not emotionally charged, clear. Noise is constant commentary. What if? What about? What does this mean? What will happen when that commentary softens? The field becomes transparent. Clarity does not need to be manufactured. It reveals itself. Notice the difference between thinking through a problem and suddenly seeing. Thinking feels sequential. One thought leading to another. Recognition feels immediate. Complete. Self-evident. Intuition emerges from silence. Because silence is undivided. In division, the mind pulls in multiple directions. In silence, there is coherence. From coherence, recognition becomes obvious. You may have felt this before. A quiet inner sense that does not explain itself, yet feels steady, not reactive, not anxious, not urgent, just clear. Intuition is not emotional impulse. It is not fear disguised as guidance. It is not desire pushing for fulfillment. It carries a certain calm, even when the message is strong. When noise softens, you can sense this difference. The body relaxes, the breath steadies, the nervous system settles, and within that settling, something simple becomes visible. Not as a voice speaking words, as a quiet alignment, a sense of yes, or a sense of no. Recognition. It does not argue its case. It does not defend itself. It simply stands. Even if thought later questions it, the original clarity was whole. Silence allows you to feel this without distortion. Not because silence creates intuition, but because silence removes interference. Intuition emerges when awareness is not crowded. It is not mystical. It is natural. Just as still water reflects clearly, a quiet mind reflects reality without distortion. You do not force intuition. You allow space. You do not chase clarity. You soften noise. And when noise softens, clarity arises. Not as reasoning, as recognition.
Awareness remains clear.
Silence contains unity. In silence, no self and other appear. Notice what happens when thought is not dividing, when there is no labeling, no referencing, no comparing. Where is the boundary? The idea of self is formed in thought. The idea of other is formed in thought. In silence, these ideas do not assemble. There is no sentence saying, "This is me, that is you." There is only presence, not blank, not empty. Simply undivided. Division requires description. It requires memory. It requires mental outlining. Silence does not outline. It does not categorize. It does not separate the field into parts. Without the mental line drawn, where does inside end and outside begin? In silence, experience is whole. Sound happens, sensation happens, breath happens, but there is no narrator placing them into boxes. No self and other appear, because the mechanism that creates distinction is quiet. Forms may still exist, bodies still move, the world still unfolds, but the psychological sense of isolated identity is absent. There is only presence, experiencing itself, not as an object, not as a concept, as immediacy. When silence deepens even briefly, there is relief. Not because something was gained, because something artificial paused. The constant division, the constant referencing, the constant positioning. Without that, unity is obvious. It does not need to be created. It does not need to be imagined. It is simply what remains when thought does not divide. In silence, no division forms. There is no center claiming ownership, no edge defending territory, just aliveness, just awareness, presence without boundary. Even when thought returns, this unity was not destroyed. It was only obscured. Silence contains unity, because silence is prior to fragmentation. It is the ground before the lines are drawn. If you notice a quiet gap between thoughts, even for a second, feel a completeness there. Nothing is missing. Nothing is separate. Only presence remains. And that presence is whole. Awareness remains undivided. in silence, in silence, in silence. Silence contains unity and silence.
Silent knowing is stable. Thought fluctuates. It rises and falls, it changes direction. It agrees, it disagrees, it believes, it doubts. One moment there is certainty. The next moment there is confusion. Thought moves like wind, restless, variable, unpredictable. Silent knowing does not move this way. It does not swing between positions. It does not strengthen or weaken. It does not become clearer on some days and disappear on others. It is constant. Notice this directly. A thought appears. It is known. The thought changes. It is known. The thought fades. Its absence is known. What is it that remains through all of these changes? Not the content, not the opinion, not the conclusion, the knowing itself. Even when the mind feels chaotic, knowing is not chaotic. Even when emotions surge, knowing is not overwhelmed. The content fluctuates. The field does not. Silent knowing is like the sky, thoughts are like weather. Storms may pass, clouds may gather, wind may move quickly. But the sky does not tremble. In the same way, awareness does not fluctuate with the movement inside it. You may say, my awareness feels dull today, or my awareness feels sharp today. But what is being described is the clarity of thought, the energy of the body, the state of attention. Silent knowing itself does not change, it has been present. In childhood, in adolescence, in adulthood, through joy, through loss, through confusion, through insight, experience has changed. Identity shifted, beliefs evolved. But the basic fact of being aware remained constant. Even when forgotten, it was there. Even when unnoticed, it functioned. Silent knowing does not require maintenance. It does not need protection. It
does not depend on mood, it is the stable ground beneath fluctuation. Right now, thought may be active or quiet. It does not matter. The knowing of it is steady. Feel that steadiness. Not as an idea, as a simple continuity. Before the next thought, during the next thought, after the next thought, it remains. Silent knowing is stable because it is not an event. It is not something that happens, it is what allows happening. Thought fluctuates. Silent knowing does not. It is constant, unmoving, always present. Awareness remains steady. Action can arise from silence. Movement can happen without mental commentary. Notice how the body moves. Breathe happens. The heart beats. Eyes blink. Posture adjusts. All without internal discussion. Even walking can unfold without narrating each step. Even reaching for something can occur before thought describes it. Speech can arise without internal debate. There are moments when words flow naturally, clear, unforced, without rehearsing, without defending. They emerge whole, complete in the moment. Silence is not passivity. It is not paralysis. It is not withdrawal. It is not the absence of response. It is the absence of unnecessary noise. When commentary quiets, functioning does not stop. It often becomes more fluid. Reaction slows. Response sharpens. Instead of layered thinking, there is direct movement. A situation appears. Action happens. Speech forms without the weight of internal argument. Notice how effortful it feels when the mind debates every move, when it calculates every word, when it anticipates every outcome. There is tension, hesitation, fragmentation. Now imagine action, arising from quiet clarity. No inner courtroom, no rehearsal, no self-evaluation. Just responsiveness. Silence does not block intelligence, it reveals it. When commentary softens, the body knows how to move. The voice knows how to speak. The moment knows how to unfold. This is not impulsivity. It is not carelessness. It is grounded presence. Impulsivity feels rushed. Silence feels steady. From silence, action is precise, appropriate, balanced. Because it is not clouded by fear or self-defense, even strong action can arise from silence. Firm words, clear boundaries, decisive movement, without aggression, without inner turbulence. Silence is not inactivity. It is undivided activity. movement without fragmentation, speech without inner conflict. You may notice this in simple moments, driving without narrating, listening without preparing your reply, responding without overthinking. There is ease. Silence allows life to flow without interference. The mind may still function, planning may still occur, thinking may still be used, but it is no longer compulsive, no longer dominant. Action can arise from silence, because silence is not separate from life. It is the ground from which life moves. Nothing needs to be forced, nothing needs to be suppressed. When inner noise softens, clarity moves naturally into expression. Movement happens, speech happens, decisions happen, without commentary, without internal debate. Silence is not passivity, it is presence in motion. Awareness remains.
Silence is familiar.
It is not foreign. It is not distant. It is not something new entering your life. You have touched this before. In deep rest, when the body softened completely and the mind stopped organizing the world, there was quiet, not forced, not constructed, simple. In awe, when something vast or beautiful stilled your thoughts, there was a pause. For a moment, no commentary, no comparison, no self-reference, only presence. In simple moments, walking without thinking, watching light move across a wall, sitting without agenda, there it was again, unannounced, ordinary, whole.
Silence is familiar, because it has always been here.
Even during noise, it remained underneath. Even during stress, it was not removed. Even during confusion, it was present. You may not have noticed it, but you were never outside it. The mind remembers dramatic experiences, peak moments, emotional intensity. But silence is more subtle. It does not demand memory. It does not leave a strong impression. It is the background, so constant. It feels invisible. Yet when you rest deeply, when striving pauses, when seeking relaxes, there is recognition, a soft sense of home. Not because something new arrived, because something familiar was uncovered. Silence does not need introduction, it does not need explanation. It feels known immediately.
like returning to a room you have always lived in, like hearing a tone you forgot you were listening to. In deep rest, in awe, in simple presence, you have touched this. And even when you believed you were far from it, silence did not withdraw. It waited, not as an object, as the ground, familiar, steady, unmoved. Right now, without doing anything, without adjusting anything, that quiet background is here. It does not need to be recreated. It does not need to be remembered perfectly. It has never been absent. Silence is familiar because it is what you are before description. Nothing new is required. Only noticing. Awareness remains.
Nothing needs to be added. You are not cultivating silence. You are not constructing it. You are not building it layer by layer. Silence is not a product of effort. It is already here. Thought moves across it. Emotion ripples within it. Sensation rises and falls inside it. But the underlying quiet remains untouched. The mind often believes that silence must be achieved, that it requires discipline, that it depends on control. But control is movement. Silence is prior to movement. You are not creating stillness. You are noticing the stillness already beneath thought. Right now, even as thinking continues, there is a background that does not move. Even as words are read, there is space in which they appear. That space is not something you make. It is something you recognize. Notice this gently. The thought arises. It is seen. Another thought follows. It is seen. What is it that sees? That seeing does not need improvement. It does not need to become quieter. It does not need to become deeper. It is already silent. Trying to add silence creates more activity. Trying to remove thought creates more struggle. But when nothing is resisted, silence is obvious. It has always been present in noise, in confusion, in clarity, in distraction. You did not lose it. You only focused on content. Silence is not fragile. It is not dependent on conditions. It is not disturbed by thinking. It is the field within which thinking happens. Nothing needs to be added, because nothing essential is missing. You are not moving towards silence. You are recognizing what has never left. Even now, without effort, without adjustment, without correction, there is quiet presence. Not because thoughts stopped, but because awareness is inherently still. Let that be enough. No cultivation, no achievement, no attainment, just noticing. Silence was always here, beneath thought, within thought, around thought. Nothing needs to be added. Awareness remains.
Silence is familiar. It is not foreign. It is not distant. It is not something new entering your life. You have touched this before. In deep rest, when the body softened completely and the mind stopped organizing the world, there was quiet, not forced, not constructed, simple, in awe. When something vast or beautiful stilled your thoughts, there was a pause for a moment. No commentary, no comparison, no self-reference, only presence. In simple moments, walking without thinking, watching light move across a wall, sitting without agenda. There it was again, unannounced, ordinary, whole. Silence is familiar because it has always been here. Even during noise, it remained underneath. Even during stress, it was not removed. Even during confusion, it was present. You may not have noticed it, but you were never outside it. The mind remembers traumatic experiences, peak moments, emotional intensity. But silence is more subtle. It does not demand memory. It does not leave a strong impression. It is the background, so constant. It feels invisible. Yet when you rest deeply, when striving pauses, when seeking relaxes, there is recognition, a soft sense of home, not because something new arrived, because something familiar was uncovered. Silence does not need introduction. It does not need explanation.
It feels known immediately, like returning to a room you have always lived in, like hearing a tone you forgot you were listening to. In deep rest, in awe, in simple presence, you have touched this. And even when you believed you were far from it, silence did not withdraw. It waited, not as an object, as the ground familiar, steady, unmoved. Right now, without doing anything, without adjusting anything, that quiet background is here. It does not need to be recreated. It does not need to be remembered perfectly. It has never been absent. Silence is familiar, because it is what you are before description. Nothing new is required, only noticing. Awareness remains. A gentle reminder: you do not create silent knowing. You do not build it. You do not strengthen it. You do not improve it. You stop overlooking it. For so long, attention has been drawn to movement, to thought, to reaction, to emotion, to story. Silent knowing was not absent. It was simply unnoticed, like the space in a room that is never questioned, like the background hum that is only heard when everything else quiets. It has always been functioning. You do not generate awareness. You do not initiate presence. You do not turn on being. You are aware before you try, before you search, before you understand. Silent knowing is the quiet certainty of awareness itself. Not certainty about beliefs, not certainty about outcomes, not certainty about identity, certainty of being. You do not think your way into this. You do not repeat it to make it true. You do not convince yourself. It is self-evident. Even doubt is known. Even confusion is known. Even resistance is known. What knows them is not confused. What sees doubt is not doubting its own existence. This is the quiet certainty, unspoken, unmoving, undivided. It does not argue for itself. It does not defend itself. It does not seek validation. It simply remains through every phase, through every change, through every belief that comes and goes. Silent knowing does not fluctuate with mental weather. It does not grow stronger when the mind is calm. It does not weaken when the mind is busy. It is constant. You are not required to hold on to it. You are not responsible for maintaining it. You cannot lose it. You can only overlook it. And even overlooking is known. Nothing stands outside this quiet presence. It is closer than breath, closer than thought, closer than identity. Before any sentence forms, it is here. After every sentence ends, it remains unspoken. Because it does not need language, unmoving. Because it is not an event, undivided. Because nothing exists outside it. You do not create silent knowing. You notice what has never left. Awareness remains.